Microsoft Ignite is a great place to hear in-depth technical news and ideas, and to learn about new tools for innovation. Limited passes are remaining, so if you're interested in attending the conference, head to Microsoft.com/Ignite.
You're listening to the Women in Business and Technology podcast from Microsoft. In each episode, you'll hear from women in amazing tech and business roles, as well as male allies who are helping make the industries more inclusive. We're diving into programs that promote greater diversity in the pipeline and bringing you tips on building a successful career in a supportive community. Welcome to Women in Business and Technology.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3. I'm Sonia Dara.
And I'm Colleen O'Brien.
This week, in our Community Connect segment, we'll chat with Frances Donegan Ryan about Janes of Digital.
We'll then hear from Carrie George about her experience as a leadership coach and wrap things up with a conversation about the infamous manifesto from former Google employee James Damore in Cutting Edge.
Community Connect. Get involved and stay connected.
I recently connected with Frances Donegan Ryan, the lead of the Global Bing Ads fan program. As part of her work, Frances manages Janes of Digital, an event series that aims to promote inclusion in the online advertising industry. Frances gave us a little bit of a background on how Janes of Digital was born.
Industry conferences can be a really, what's the best word? It can be an aggressive or an unwelcoming or feel like an unsafe event if you're a woman, particularly if you're there on your own and you don't have colleagues with you, and particularly if it's your first one because you're not sure, what to expect. And many of us are expected to attend industry events and industry conferences as part of our personal development, as part of our role. I myself have to go to actually represent Bing Ads. And so the thought was, instead of the one night where there's kind of a nightclub party and it doesn't feel quite safe or welcoming to go, what if we threw another still funky, swanky, still got cocktails and wine event, but where we actually created space to have conversations about topics and issues and challenges that women face in this online advertising search world, because that was really our industry focus. And I think the number one tenet was that we would talk about really meaningful issues, but we would also be very inclusive. So the event is open to men and women.
While events range in size and scale, Janes of Digital has locked on an awesome format to cater to many different networking styles.
We never have it in a corporate office. We always have it in another fun space so that you don't feel sort of constricted by being your work self. You can be your authentic self. And we open the doors so you can meet and chat with people and grab a cocktail. And then we also provide professional headshots at every Janes of Digital. So you can really walk out with something tangible for your career. So you can use it for your social media, you can use it for your speaker profile, and we hope that helps women kind of get a leg up on that side as well. Then we do the panel, and then I always want to make sure there's time at the end, so we have another 30, 45 minutes at the end for more chatting, to really follow up on things that we've heard in conversations, to get your photo if you haven't gotten it already. And we definitely want to make sure that we represent all types of people. So there's a lot of people who aren't comfortable asking a question in front of a group, or who would prefer one-on-one conversations with panelists or with each other. So I want to respect that and make space for that. And then we try and do interviews with people afterwards, obviously, so we need a little time. But lots of nibbles and foods and drinks, and a really open and safe environment for anybody to attend and to experience everything we have and interact with people in the way that they're most comfortable and excited to do.
The Janes of Digital team wasn't seeing sufficiently diverse panels at these industry conferences, so they decided to host their own. And they're considering inclusion along a few different parameters.
You know, when I would attend these industry events, there were very few women on stage. They might be sort of 20 to 25% of the total speakers slots. And that includes sitting on panels, moderating panels, leading training. And in fact, I rarely, if ever, saw a female keynote speech. And so really part of it was we're not seeing ourselves represented. We're not seeing ourselves represented on stage as leaders in this industry. And then you have that sort of chicken and egg where you would apply to be a speaker and they're like, well, you don't have experience, and you know, how you're supposed to get that experience if you're not getting accepted. So when we very first launched the event, we're like, if we have a panel, which we do at every event, then that gives a woman experience speaking, and then they can add that to their resume. So it had a very tangible, real purpose to support women in the industry. And then we had a transgender woman on our Seattle panel. We've had other people on the panel who have talked about what it's like to be an immigrant, who have talked about what it's like to be gay in a very masculine-charged industry. People have talked about race. In fact, our last panel in June was pretty much entirely focused on race and how do you even begin to have those conversations if you're curious, if you don't know how to talk to somebody of a different race, or you have questions but you don't know how to ask them.
To learn more about the upcoming Janes of Digital events, follow @JanesOfDigital on Twitter. You can find all of the archived panel recordings at janesofdigital.org.
Carrie, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you join us today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
You are a leadership coach as well as an executive coach at Harvard Business School. Mm-hmm. Will you tell our listeners a bit more about the coaching profession and what a typical day on the job looks like for you?
As a leadership coach and an executive coach, I focus on professional clients, and my specific target audience is professional women. The work I do at Harvard Business School is with women in a program called the Women's Leadership Forum. That's an executive education program. And that program brings in women from all over the world, and they get 2 hours of coaching a day. And so I work with a team of 4 women, typically, and we tackle for each woman a problem they're dealing with on the job or in their personal lives.
Interesting. And why have you decided to narrow your focus to a woman-specific audience?
Well, I'm interested in the issues around women in business. And having been a woman in business for many years, I have experienced firsthand some of the joys of that, but also some of the difficult issues surrounding being a woman in the workforce. And as I've done more and more research and more reading on topics of women in the workplace, I've really felt some things strike home over the last 10 years or so. And in the research work that's being done around women in the workplace, I'm just fascinated by the issues. But I'm specifically interested in some of the ways women confront challenges, some of the ways women tackle issues, and some of the issues that women face that might be a little bit different from the issues men face.
And you touched on a few of them, but what are the concerns or problems that many of your clients are bringing to the table to talk about with you?
So specifically, for example, one issue that there's been a lot of research on is women's styles versus men's styles. So a typical woman might be less assertive, less aggressive than a typical man. And of course, it's all generalization. So of course, there are exceptions to everything. Mm-hmm. So I've worked with a number of women on how to make their voice heard in the workplace without giving up who they are. Absolutely critical that a person to succeed and to be productive, a woman or a man for that matter has to feel at home in the workplace, has to feel accepted and wanted and encouraged. And in order to experience those things, a woman can't sacrifice who she is. She can't be that aggressive type A person if she's not an aggressive type A person. That said, there are things women can do to help have their voices be heard, for example. So some of the ways women can make their voices heard in the workplace include things like seeking allies in meetings. If, for example, Colleen, you said something, I noticed it was talked over, and I noticed that Joe came up with the same idea 2 minutes later, I might say, Joe, that was great that you picked up on Colleen's idea. Working with allies, and they don't all have to be women. There are plenty of stories where it can be men helping women with that kind of thing. Another thing is practice. Find those moments to make your contributions. And if you have an idea, force yourself to present your idea. How many times have you sat in a meeting, had somebody say something, and thought to yourself, oh, I thought of that, but I just wasn't sure.
Right.
So having the confidence to speak up when you have something to say helps.
Right. We talk about that here at Microsoft as sort of an inclusive behavior around meetings. It's, that not everyone needs to contribute in the meeting itself if you're not as good at thinking on your feet. A great way to participate is putting your thoughts together in writing and sending that message thereafter.
Yeah, and I think that's marvelous to hear. And I was doing consulting work at Microsoft quite a few years ago, and that definitely was not the ethic at that time. And I've watched that change over the years, and I'm really thrilled to see the effort Microsoft is making in that regard.
Definitely. We are in a cultural revolution for sure. So, Carrie, you graduated from HBS yourself before returning as an executive coach. Did you notice any significant changes in the academic environment in the time between your graduation and returning?
Yes, I think there have been some significant things. I think in terms of the focus of the coursework, that's evolved as the business world has evolved. There's a lot more on entrepreneurship now, for example, than there ever used to be. Mm-hmm. But some other specific things that I've seen are a real effort with women and minorities to become more inclusive in a way that goes beyond just the admissions office. Dean Noria of Harvard Business School came in, 6 or 7 years ago with the express charge of increasing the comfort level of women at the business school. Apparently this had been complained about over the years. And so he put in place various initiatives that have just been marvelous. For example, he actually had people go into the classroom and measure the time that women spoke in the classroom versus men, and then use that data to train the professors on how to encourage non-participators to participate and to overcome some of those things like the man talking over the women about ideas. They trained the professors and could show the professors where they were letting that happen. Whereas before that data was available, they just didn't see that. Now, when I was in business school, there just wasn't any consciousness of that. Hey, we made it in. We were on our own. Nobody was really aware of some of the things that have been learned about more subtle forms of sexism. Anything overt was jumped on right away. But I don't think we understood some of these ways that were less obvious.
No one had a stopwatch in the classroom and was timing how much men versus women are speaking.
No. And
Understandable.
They're not doing that on an ongoing basis. And here's another one. For example, Harvard Business School uses the case study method. And in fact, it's a big source of revenue for the business school. And when Dean Noria got there, He had someone do a little research and found that women were primary characters in 9% of the cases they used. And this was in, I think, 2011. So it's not that long ago. 9%. If you think about the people you work with, a lot more than 9% of them are women. So they're way underrepresented. Well, when I was in business school, I didn't think about the fact that they were underrepresented. And yet I can't remember all that many cases that featured women in important decision-making roles. So that's something they've done to address that, is made a very concentrated effort to increase the presence of women in case studies.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that.
Carrie, you graduated from Harvard Business School and worked for a few large firms before jumping into entrepreneurship. What led you down that path?
I was really ready to do something different. I think I was a little bit a child of the 70s and had come from a background, a family that didn't have any business people in it, actually. And so when I went to college and then went to business school and then went to Bain & Company, I grew tremendously. It was all new to me. It was all exciting for me. And then I felt a little bit of an urge to go back to what some might call the real world. Not that the other parts of the world aren't real as well, but I had an interest in getting back to working with people in all levels of an organization. And so my husband and I actually bought a company from a gentleman who was retiring. And over the next 15 years, we grew that company. We, I think, about tripled it in size and employed all sorts of different people and really implemented strategic plans, just all the things you do in a business. And I loved doing it from the ground up. After a while, I got ready to go back and think about, instead of having a broad exposure to many different function areas, I got more interested in coming back to a bigger business world where the problems were maybe larger in terms of their impact on the world than I could have in a smaller business. So both sides of my business career just have been great for me. I've loved working on the shop floor, and I've loved working in the C-suite as a consultant and as a coach. Both sides have been great.
Many early-stage professionals in technology really struggle with whether or not they should return to school to get an MBA. And you can sort of attribute that to some of the great leadership in the industry right now. Of course, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg don't have their undergraduate degrees. So it's sometimes hard to understand the return on investment in this industry of going back to school. Working in the Seattle area, I'm sure that you have many clients working in technology. So my question for you is an MBA still relevant and important in the technology field?
I've thought a lot about that. And I think for many people it is. I don't think it is for everybody. I think we look at Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, and they're pretty special people. We can't all be Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg.
Really?
Darn. It would be nice, wouldn't it? So I think an ideal education for a business person is to have a liberal arts undergraduate degree and then a graduate degree in business, if that's the side they want to go into, a technology-oriented program, if that's the side they want to go into. Because that liberal arts undergraduate degree gives you really the critical thinking skills that I think people need in business, gives you the communication skills. Writing is so critical in so much of the work. If you can get your point across concisely and in an interesting way,
And
people
in a compelling
respond
way.
in a compelling way. That's a better word, compelling way.
Getting someone to open that email.
Getting someone to open
a very important skill to have.
As Mark Twain said, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter. Anyway, the training you get in an MBA program is really learning the nuts and bolts of how business works. And what are the parts of the business that maybe you're not going to be working in, but that you need to understand so that all those interrelationships are clear to you? So that's a little bit about what you learn and the value of that. The other side of your question is really kind of a return on investment issue. Is it worth the money to go get an MBA or to go to some other kind of graduate school that's relevant to your work? And that depends on so many things. It depends on where you're going to go to school. It depends on what your opportunities are before you go to graduate school versus after you go to graduate school. I think it pays to really understand how will your opportunities be different. If they're going to be significantly different, then go for it. If your opportunities aren't going to be significantly different, then you want to do it if you're interested in doing it and if you think that learning the content is going to really make a difference in how your career develops over time.
At University of Washington specifically, because so many people are in the technology world here, they've been pretty scrappy about figuring out programs that really fit into the lifestyle of a technology professional, whether it's through distance learning or part-time learning or night and weekend learning. And I think it's really great that higher education is answering technology in a pretty innovative way.
You know, when I was answering, I was really concentrating on 2-year MBA programs where you go to school full-time. I do think there are tremendous opportunities, and I know UW is a leader in that, to do executive MBA programs or other learning opportunities that can get you the knowledge you need without sacrificing all that income and those years.
I was a graduate of the Technology Management MBA program last year, so
congratulations.
Thank you. I really appreciate your answer to this return on investment question. I know that you're leading a session at Microsoft Ignite entitled In the Pursuit of Happiness, Bring Your Whole Self to Work. What can attendees expect from that session?
Well, first let me say I'm so excited that Microsoft asked me to do that session, and partly because I want to do it. But more, I'm excited that Microsoft is pursuing the issues of happiness in the workplace. There's a tremendous body of research that shows that happier employees are more productive employees. So there's science backing up the fact that happiness is important. There's also a tremendous body of research around whether we can control happiness. And the latest research seems to indicate that happiness tends to be about 40% just who you are, the way you were born, your genetic makeup, about 10% due to circumstances, and about 50% due to things you can control, your attitudes, things you choose to think about. And so putting those two things together, the fact that productivity is a function of happiness and happiness is a function of thoughts we can control, we've got a great weapon to work with in terms of making employees find more fulfillment and be better at their jobs. So in the session, I plan to talk about some of that science, first of all, to just explain what that body of work is and what some of the key findings in that body of work are. And then I want to get into really the practical side. What can you as a person do to make yourself happier at work? And what can you as a manager do to make yourself happier at work? And some of those things have to do with bringing your whole self to work.
It sounds like some of the science that you're going to address in your session is grounded in this study of positive psychology. And positive psychology is not new. Martin Seligman, who's credited as the founder of the study, communicated his ideas pretty broadly in this 2004 TED Talk. And just a few years later, positive psychology, taught by Tal Ben-Shahar, became Harvard University's most popular class. I remember that when I was at school, that class was lotteried. Not everyone could get into it. But as society, we still need to be reminded to prioritize the stuff that makes life worth living. Mm-hmm. Can you explain any trends that you see in the clients that you coach and why we need to continue to have this conversation about positive psychology? Why isn't it a part of our social fabric yet?
I think new is relative. 2004 isn't that long ago in the scheme of things. And positive psychology really wasn't around until this century. The practice of psychology had been rooted in addressing abnormal psychologies or mental illness. So really, psychology was all about curing people. Taking that next step to what does it take to have someone have a really good life? It's not just the absence of illness. There's a lot more to it. And exploring that has taken a few years, and obviously this exploration is going to go on. I think the trends I see are much more interest in people finding fulfillment, people finding a purpose. One of the pieces of research that's come out, and this comes from Martin Seligman, and there are different takes on it by different researchers, but there are 5 things that it takes to have truly authentic happiness and abundant gratification, and those are his words. Positive emotions, deep engagement, positive relationships, meaning or purpose, and accomplishment. And I have clients coming to me talking about what is my purpose? Why am I doing this? And wanting to really explore those issues. I don't think 15 or 20 years ago I ever thought about what my purpose was. My purpose was to have a job and go to work and come home and do whatever I was going to do. Now that is a huge topic.
I'm wondering, when is the right time to make an investment in a coach and how to track down the right person for you?
When you want to make the investment, or when one of 2 conditions exists. One is you're unhappy and you need, or you're stuck. Say you like most of your job, but you're struggling with a boss or you're struggling with a colleague or something like that. There's a situation that you need to address. That's when you'd seek out a coach. The other condition is when things are going great and you're ready for the next challenge. And I think that's a great time to get a coach involved and to work with you on what that challenge could look like. What direction do you want to take? How do you want to pursue that challenge?
What are some of the dynamics that bring about those success stories? Is it that a coach provides me with some external accountability? Is it that a coach knows the right questions to ask? What's at play there?
So I think the first thing that a coach can add, the value a coach can add, is helping that person work through what they're really feeling, what they're experiencing, and suss out what's behind that. You know, I'm unhappy. I think I'm unhappy because of X. Well, what is it about X? If X weren't present, would you be happy? They're really peeling the onion on trying to find what is behind a person's feelings is something coaches tend to be really good at. And helping a person find what their real purpose is. You know, what do you really want? And I mean, people don't have time to sit back and reflect on those questions. And when you have a coach, you have someone who's trained to talk through those issues with and help you figure them out. Accountability is another thing you mentioned, and that is huge because a lot of times making change in your own life is hard. Making change in your situation can be hard. Making change in your attitudes can be hard. Making changes in your perspective can be hard. And a coach can help you hold yourself accountable. The coach doesn't hold you accountable. The coach helps you hold yourself accountable. And that's a really valuable part of coaching for a lot of people. People don't make the time to address those issues that can really change their lives. They're too big. They're too hard to tear down into bite-sized pieces. And that's where a coach can come in.
Carrie, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, thank you for asking that. My website is carriegleadership.com. And my email address is carrieg@live.com, and Carrie is spelled Carrie.
Excellent. Carrie, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciated you making the time and joining us for the show.
Okay, thank you.
Cutting Edge, our take on stories from the business and technology world.
So, as many of you probably know by now, in July of 2017, now former, Google engineer James Damore published a memo entitled Google's Ideological Echo Chamber. The memo gained some traction in August, but it was actually published in July. And he starts off the memo by talking about how a lot of people who work in the tech industry are liberal-minded and that he personally has faced some discrimination because of his more conservative viewpoints. And many people actually believe that there's some merit to this argument.
Where people, though, started reacting to the manifesto was when he talks about one of the contributing factors to his argument is differences in distributions of traits between men and women and how that might play a part in explaining why there's less than 50% representation of women in tech and leadership roles. So he kind of took this biological stance on why women might not have these leader roles in tech especially, and that's where a lot more of this flack came from and where it started gaining a lot more traction in the media. The engineer was actually subsequently fired, and then on August 8th, Google CEO Sundar Pichai posted a blog actually addressing the memo and his reasons for firing the engineer, which was also faced with a little bit of questioning, especially from actual Google employees. So I'm just going to quickly recite that part of the memo because I think it's pretty important. He says, to suggest a group of our colleagues have traits that make them less biologically suited to that work is offensive and not okay. It is contrary to our basic values and our code of conduct, which expects each Googler to do their utmost to create a workplace culture that is free of harassment, intimidation, bias, and unlawful discrimination.
I love that he quoted the code of conduct here because he's actually explaining that it's written into the foundation of the organization that it should be an inclusive space. I also really appreciated this response from YouTube CEO, Susan Wojcicki. She wrote in an August 8th article in Fortune magazine this really compelling and personal piece. And I'm going to read a quote from that piece. As a company that has long supported free expression, Google obviously stands by the right that employees have to voice, publish, or tweet their opinions. But while people may have a right to express their beliefs in public, that does not mean companies cannot take action when women are subjected to comments that perpetuate negative stereotypes about them based on their gender. I think it was really powerful that multiple leaders at the company took a stance against hateful language and hateful expression of data against other employees at this company.
Yeah, and it's at least around the water cooler here at Microsoft. It's obviously been a topic, and I think people are expressing their opinions about it in different ways. And one way, which I thought was pretty helpful and a little cathartic, is every month on my team, there is a lunch we have called the Women in Devices. So it includes HoloLens, MR, Surface. We have a Women in Devices lunch, and this was one of our topics. And actually, Colleen had joined in as well, coming in from the engineering side.
I crashed.
Invited her. She crashed. Much appreciated. And we kind of created a healthy discussion about this because I think it's on top of mind. I think it's important to find a safe place to even discuss maybe something that potentially this guy might have been hoping it was safe discussion. But when someone starts questioning other fellow employees' value, it's important to, I think, appropriately discuss it. So I found it pretty cathartic getting to discuss with other women. And it was also super valuable because we had female leaders and managers and people CVP level in the conversation who are talking and discussing. And I think it's important to foster healthy dialogue.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, really encouraging to see that a lot of your leadership was there. Sort of it's walking the walk to show up to a small casual gathering like that, but really meaningful when you want to hear how your employees have been impacted by news like this. So I really appreciated the invite.
Yeah, of course. And it was nice to see how many of our male allies and coworkers also at least reached out to me and made sure they could support however they could. So it really resonated with me, and I really appreciated the fact that my female leaders and people managers took the time out of their day to attend this meeting and to make sure their female employees and directs felt supported and respected in the wake of this memo.
Another great episode, right?
I agree. I'm also highly biased, but yeah, that was a pretty good episode. To all of our listeners out there, we really appreciate you tuning in. Please send us any feedback or questions you have and you want answered on the air. You can email us at wibt@microsoft.com. And we're also on Twitter, so please tweet at us at Microsoft Women.
And remember to subscribe to the show. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or honestly, wherever you get your podcasts. If you do have a spare minute today, please consider writing us a review. We'd love to get your rating as well. And I know that you know someone who would get a kick out of this podcast, would really like hearing some of these conversations. So please consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. We really look forward to connecting with you.